the theory that you want to grab hold of is this. Competitive organization in any form, communism, competitive organization and competitive capitalism, this is so important economically. This is your economic history. It never changes, never violates, never wavers. So this is brick and mortar. You can't change it. It leads to this. This is what it leads to. It leads to consolidation of wealth. Competitive system architecture leads to consolidation of wealth. It could be power or wealth, where 1% have more of it than 99%. That's unstable. That leads to meltdown. If it's political, it's a revolution, like Egypt. So it's always going to lead to meltdown when the Mubarak has too much power. And so it'll lead to meltdown, politically in power, political capital, or real capital. Then you have meltdown from the instability. Then you move into trade war. There's trade wars between neighbors, currencies are manipulated, all sorts of tariffs. It's economic. People don't like to talk about how trade wars work, but that's what's going on in the world right now. And that's creating further instability. That creates a contagion event where they're having runs on bank when I'm making this in the EU. They're physical runs on banks, and it's spreading and it's getting out of control. And that gets to the super contagion event, which becomes super crash. Then there's super crash that follows meltdown. Always happened in the 29 depression, and super crash creates war. And then war happens, which devastates populations, infrastructure, etc. And then there's a rebuilding that slowly, now that there's a different wealth mechanics and more widely distributed wealth, compresses back from the competitive system to 1% owning too much, 99% not having full partnership, and then the whole cycle repeats again to war. And the only thing that's changed is our weapons have gone from the longbow to some pretty serious weapons. And I don't know that we can get through war. Eventually, we're going to have a species eliminating war. And I'm saying it's insane. It's insane. What causes it? The virus, the competitive virus. And if we don't identify the source code, we can't stop the cycle. We can't even change the system. So I believe the most important revolution in the planet has to start with education. And I believe that the educators that put out the theory, say Adam Smith economics, John Nash won a Nobel Prize at Princeton for cooperative theory. And he wrote the master plans and mathematically proved that all of John Smith's math is wrong. And Friedman's math is wrong, and Keynesian was right. He was even right in his debt relief theories. And so what we have to do is get some thought around a modified Keynesian approach to cooperative capitalism and let the whole world buy in and have full partnership. And education has to be the breeding ground for cooperative theory, that organizing any enterprise in a cooperative hub management system on a management theory basis is the future of the future Nobel Prizes of your publishing and where you need to go in your exploration and context. And you have to abandon competitive theory, and you have to espouse its evilness and its inefficiencies. Whenever you reform organizational functionality in larger companies to cooperative theory, they rise up the fortune ladder. The output is unbelievable. Human performance explodes. You know, Apple is not competing with Microsoft. They're not perfectly competitive or cooperative, rather, but they're much more cooperative than, say, a Microsoft. And the result is Microsoft, after all the years, can't match the operating system quality, invent an iPod, invent an iPad, and come out with a version of an operating system that is as robustly innovative and forward of what they have to offer. It is just so antique comparatively. And it is the notion of super inventiveness and the creative that is a response to cooperative organization in any form. That to the extent you have more cooperation, you have more Apple breakthroughs. And I'm saying, do you want that in society? Because it's proven, and education has to stand for it. That's what you get in thought leaders, spiritual thought leaders. We have to come together with what the effectiveness of the United Nations of religion. So we have to buy in that competitive aspects of religious thought, especially in extremism, have created from the Inquisition to modern terrorism our problems, fundamentally coming back to punishing what we don't think is right about how we're different in our thoughts and expressions. So we need to celebrate how we all undertake our spiritual journeys of unfolding the adventure of self-discovery, of learning about how we connect to the things that are everything in life and where the source of all of it, everything is for us. And the way anyone does it is wonderful and celebrational. And the only thing we back away from are the brains that can't be retrained. And we have to increasingly shrink the real estate, isolate and put away the brains that are toxic, violent, won't retrain, and we have to put them away and just back up from them and feel sorry for them because you can't retrain them. The virus is in control of them. But again, we don't hate that individual. We bless the motherboard. We bless the baby that came in the motherboard. We know it was loaded with terrible software from the projects or the Gulf or whatever happened, and we just bless the motherboard and forgive the software. Now, the United Nations of Religion, which I espouse in the book, should be part of the Cooperation Revolution of redemption and housed in the big island of Hawaii, because I don't know how you can have a lot of fighting with aloha and the spirit of that place. You're going to be softer than you are in the Beltway. And you sit there with all the religions, and your goal is to, one, celebrate all faiths as a mandate, and make faith as the most important and celebratory area in the world, and pressure religions to allow, pressure governments to allow formal scientific study to the mind of God, and that all science is an expression of revelation of the mind of God. It's a context to the mind of God. And if someone says, like Hawkins, there is no God because in his chair he can't imagine the thought of being without time, being in a timeless place. He can't transition to that. So he wants physical matter to be timeless. And that's okay, because he can't understand the thought process of the divine that is outside time. And he doesn't understand that creation is always occurring in the mind of God. It didn't come and stop, and it didn't. So his transition to timelessness doesn't work. I do believe that in the times of transition and pain, he's not going to give himself over to the resurgent Big Bang of physical matter. So I think that he will, at some point in time in his own spiritual life, have some awakening to his spiritual immortality, and to understand that he has a soul that is divine, and he'll come to that expression and forgive himself. But I do celebrate his belief that there is no God and physical matter is just recycling to the Big Bang. I don't punish him. I don't believe like he believes. I don't, embrace his belief thought. But I do celebrate him. I don't want anything negative to ever flow around his adventure and how he's exploring what he's doing. And I hope he has the same feeling for our thoughts. That's a cooperative way to be brought up and to be in the world. And we get rid of this tension of competition and this response. Competition always requires justification, always requires a response. Thought leaders, religious leaders know, gravity affects all bodies all at once in all directions all at the same time. Power always overcomes force. Power is permanent. Force requires a response, and I pull and they pull and I pull and we're both in the mud. Who wants to go across that mud fight? Are we done with that now? Let's all be clean, go to the showers and have a beer. Let's have fun. And competitive sports are just about how cooperative that team is. It's undefeatable if it's more cooperative. And we express it that way. And it's just an attitude of looking at the games as opposed to the annihilation of the games. And I mean, it's one attitude versus another. Which attitude do you want? The virus in charge? Or do you want to be virus-free? Religious thought leaders have to be the expression first of all of that. And if you can't be full partnered with each other in faith-based, shouldn't you have an ambassador from the United Nations of Religion in every cabinet? Before we went to a war with Iraq, and Saddam and his sons wanted to leave and said, we'll leave, should we let them leave? Should we find a cooperative solution for the people of Iraq? If the UNR was in the cabinet, would they have maybe opposed going to war? And if the UNR said we have to go to war because this terror group is becoming so competitively virus threatening to the cooperative consciousness that we can't isolate it any other way, we have to push the delete button. But they have unitedly said that. The Muslims said that. Everyone said that. And I mean, now that is a cooperative way to really run the planet appropriately, responsibly, where the adults take over from the virus, which is always a child and needs to go to its room, and we can push it off to its room. I believe waking up is the one big step for mankind. The Big Bang is recognizing you have the competitive virus, that it's the source of everything, and everything else is symptom. Competition is the source of all of the pain. source of all of the aggravation and unwanted behaviors. And cooperation is the solution and is the dynamic to resolve and evolve and bring us into full partnership. What do we want? Full partnership in every way. Conversation, faith sharing, everything that's different about us being interesting, where we learn from each other, from food and game and sport and dress and culture, face and religion and different. Thank God we have different skin colors in different ways. Isn't it interesting? Isn't it wonderful? And stop going to black parties and try and be black. Even though, the blacks don't want you, you stop coming to our parties and be white. It's like, just, don't you want some white guys at your party? Don't you want some black guys at your party? Isn't it fun because of the difference? Isn't it great how the culture difference and the movement and song and expressions are different? Isn't it gas? Isn't it fun? Why don't we tell our children that? Why don't we learn that? Why don't we just relearn it? Why don't we all embrace it? Religion, education, corporate organizers, thought leaders. Start, whether it's your home, your family, your dentist office, or a fortune company. Reform your environment and culture. And be around people who talk about being more virus-free and express that's more cooperative, that's competitive, I don't want to do that, let's be cooperative, let's find a cooperative way. All those that talk that way, stay around them. Those that say that cooperation is bunk, that competition is the only way to go, that competition is good and from God, bless them, back up, forgive their software, bless the motherboard, and turn around and get people who are virus-free. Stay with virus-free thinkers and get free of being around the contamination of those where the virus is in control. And your life will thrill you. You will turn into a life that thrills you. And if the shortest thing that you have on cash and capital is your lifetime, we're all out of time. We don't have enough time. And if you want the time of your life, I ask you to look at pushing the delete button on your virus and beginning to be virus-free in your living. Redemption, the cooperation revolution, is the most important revolution in 2,000 years of humanity. Right at the time that consciousness is sweeping the world, with the right energy, words, and framework vibratorily to make the revolution sustainable and unstoppable, so that we can have longevity and discover the stars and heal our planet, which can never happen until we deal with the first pollution, which happens right here. I wish you a cooperation future and a life that thrills you. I'm Bernhard Dohrmann, and I wrote this book just for you.